thighs, the bone removed. With the skin, you can remove the skin if you wanted to. What I did was I removed the excess skin and most of the fat that I can find in there. I wash my chicken. If you don't worry about it, but essentially what we do in the Caribbean, either a lime or a lemon or vinegar along with water, and we wash it and then you drain it dry. If you want to remove the skin, you can do that, but for this sandwich that I'm making based loosely, well, there's one ingredient here that mommy wouldn't use for making fried chicken, which is the buttermilk that I have here. And I just find that from experience, I get a more tender, sort of flavorful chicken once it's fried. Now you can use this recipe for making any sort of fried chicken that you want, whether it's chicken tenders, whether it's chicken thighs with a bone on, drumstick, wings, all those different things. It's just that we're making sandwiches with this. And I guess we should talk about the full set of ingredients. What we have here, of course, is the 6 chicken thighs. We'll need some salt, some black pepper, Caribbean green seasoning. I have a tiny bit of curry powder, and the full recipe will be available in a few days on CaribbeanPod.com. I've got some Worcestershire sauce. I've got a tiny bit of sesame oil, and I'm going to grate some ginger in there as well. You will notice nothing in the powdered form, those sort of powdered onion and garlic and everything else. No, that's not how mommy and her mommy before that did things in the Caribbean. So I hate seeing all this all-purpose seasoning and all that stuff like that. In my Caribbean green seasoning, if you head over to CaribbeanPod.com, you will see not only is there a ton of different herbs in there, but it's loaded with garlic and seasoning peppers, which is aka pimento peppers. So you're getting a ton of flavor from that. First things first, salt. And I'm using sea salt, but you can use any salt that you like. Totally up to you. Just gonna reach over here and grab my black pepper mill. I want some fresh grated black pepper in there. And what you need to do with this is season it and marinate it for at least 3 hours in my case. I'm just gonna go in this a little bit there so you guys can really see what's happening. In my case, I'm making some noise here. I apologize for the shaky camera. I will marinate this overnight. Tomorrow I'm going to fry this up for making my sandwiches. After that, I'm going to go in with my Caribbean green seasoning. And again, that is loaded with a lot of fresh flavor in there. Some Worcestershire sauce, as I mentioned earlier. That a tiny bit of curry powder, nothing significant, but it will add a lovely flavor to things. I'm going to drizzle on that tiny bit of sesame oil. Now if you wanted to add some pepper sauce in here, just wipe up here. You can add any sort of hot sauce or pepper sauce that you want in here. Totally up to you. Pally will be eating this, my little guy Zaire. So I am not trying to kill the boy. Of course, we're gonna get a bit of spice or heat from the ginger, and we don't want much. Just a small piece. So maybe once it's grated, it's gonna be about half a teaspoon of grated ginger in there. Just gonna knock that down. And what we want to do at this point is give this a good mix before we add the buttermilk to it, because I want it to take on all those flavors and not get saturated by the milk. So if we added the milk now, the milk will be seasoned more than the chicken itself. So I'm just gonna mix that up, and I really want to make sure the pieces of chicken is coated with everything. And you can see what I was talking about. So the bone has been removed, most of the fat, and we've got the skin on the underside here. I didn't want to touch it earlier and then have to wash my hands and worry about cross-contaminating anything. In the same bowl here is where I will marinate this. So I'll put some plastic wrap on top and stick it in the fridge. So now you see this is all coated. I'm going to give that about 5 minutes just for that curry and the green seasoning, sesame oil, everything to kind of penetrate a little bit before I add the buttermilk to it. Just reach over and we're going to pour that buttermilk. We just want to put enough in there to cover the pieces of chicken, so about a cup and a half of that buttermilk. So then I'm just going to give it a little shaky shake just to make sure that buttermilk, I don't want to remove too much of the seasoning from the chicken. And you know, the buttermilk is something mommy would never use, so that is the only sort of variant to mommy's recipe for making fried chicken for us as we were growing up on the island. So I'm just going to tuck everything down into that. We're going to put some plastic wrap on there and into the fridge. Like I said, 3-4 hours. If you have time overnight, you'll get a better tasting chicken the next day. Back in the days when mommy would make fried chicken for us, we didn't have access, or maybe there was, we just didn't know about it. Breadcrumbs. So what she would do, salted crackers, and back then it was Cricks. So you take salted crackers, it must be salted crackers by the way, and in my case I put it into a Ziploc bag. I'm using the pestle from my mortar and pestle to crush it. I just want to get rid of all the big pieces, kind of get it in a sort of consistent sort of texture. Back then she would put it in what she would call her roti cloth, which is a dishcloth that she would wrap her sada roti in. And my brother and I, or my sisters, we would go in with the belna, which is the rolling pin, and we would do this. So all you want to do is crush some salted crackers with it. I know today we're seeing like Doritos, we're seeing potato chips, we're seeing Cheetos, especially the fiery sort of spicy Cheetos being used. So I guess they owe mommy and those people in her generation some money for taking the idea. Anyhow, we're gonna crush this. Just gonna move it around a bit, and you can see they're getting nice. And it's gonna sort of replicate, it's funny, the sort of texture you're gonna get from this is gonna replicate a panko breadcrumbs, believe it or not. Back there you'll notice I have the chicken. Let me switch it around for you for a second. Back then mommy wouldn't use buttermilk in marinating her chicken, so what she would do at this point is have a two-step sort of staging before it went into the oil, the hot oil. She would whisk 3 eggs, and this would be relatively dry. It would just be the seasonings that we put on it, which would have been marinating. Out of the fridge about an hour, 45 minutes now. I want it up in room temperature. And she would dip this into the eggs, and then into the biscuit crumbs there, and then into the fryer. In our case, I'm not using eggs because it's already moist, and I tossed out most of the milk, but I left some on here just to keep it moist. I'm just going to dust it in here and into the fryer. And you guessed it correctly, that is some oil I used to fry chicken before. I usually save it into containers, and I want to get the oil up to about 350 degrees. And then what we're going to do is grab a piece of chicken into the biscuit crumbs and into here. You don't need to season. This is why we're using salted crackers, yeah? But remember, most of that seasoning and everything is here. It's in the chicken itself. It's been going overnight, so that is packed with flavor. That said, if you wanted to season, if you're using breadcrumbs or panko crumbs, or if you're crushing the salt biscuit as I did, you can season it up if you want. It's not necessary, trust me. Got a couple pieces already in there, and again, all I'm doing is grabbing a piece, dumping it in there, and you can use 2 hands if you want to, just to keep it nice and clean. 1 hand for the wet, 1 hand for the dry, but not necessarily in my case here. And all I'm doing is tucking it down into that hot oil. Remember, we want to maintain it at about 350 degrees. I'm going to do 3. I'm going to remove them, and then I'll do the other 3. Just not to overcrowd the pan. And you can see I've got a wire wrap or a tray here. I don't like putting it on paper towels. If you like putting it on paper towels, totally up to you. What I'm going to do now is drain them as they come out, and then add the second batch, just for that air, so it doesn't go soggy basically. And here's a prime example of what I mean by the oil, the extra oil just going down onto the cookie sheet I have on the bottom there, and that is courtesy of the wire wrap. That would have, if had you used paper towels, that would have made your chicken soggy. The second batch is in the oil now, And I have the others, well, the first three we started with on the wire rack. Now here's where, if you wanted to finish with the finishing salt, whether it's a smoked sea salt, whatever salt you like using, you can drizzle some on there. I've cut back drastically on the amount of sodium in my diet, so I'm not going to add any salt in there. I'm just going to continue frying these. I'm just going to flip them over. And again, 8 to 10 minutes, that's all you need, yeah? Because it's going to fully cook all the way through in that time. Because remember, we remove the bones, and by doing so, we created a wider cooking surface. And it's hot oil, 350 degrees Fahrenheit. And there you go. I finished up the second batch there. And like I said, you can dust it with some sea salt if you want to. And this sandwich, for me personally, it's going to be very simple. Some lettuce from the garden. If you want some pickled onions on there, cool. If you're into pickles, I am not into actual pickles, because the sort of quick pickle on onions is totally different than pickled cucumbers. I want some Dijon mustard, some of my homemade garlic sauce, and this one, you see the specks of green in there, that has shadow benny. If you head over to caribbeanpot.com, you'll find that recipe there. Unlike a lot of people, I like a tiny bit of tomato ketchup and some pepper sauce on my sandwich as well. So I'm just gonna slap these on a nice bun, load it up as I just mentioned, and again, you can tailor it to however you like. Now, if you want, all you want to do is enjoy this as fried chicken, by all means, you can do that. If you want to chop it up into pieces and add it to a salad, you can do that as well. It's going to be one of the most flavorful pieces of fried chicken you've ever tried. Guaranteed. No kind of mama guy talk, and not on that scene today, Rasta. No, sir. And there you go, my interpretation of my mom's fried chicken sandwich. And you gotta give it a try, man. It's real easy. Just look how pretty that thing looking. And again, you can dress it up however you like, right? It's totally up to you.